if you're uncomfortable with women's health, it's not going to be too creepy, but it might, irritate you. In 1993, I was about 30 years old, 32, somewhere around there. I started having some weird things go wrong. My blood pressure went sky high, 160 over 110. I was 32. I mean, this was unusual. And I went to the doctor. I also was having, chest pain and everything, panicking. And I would have these anxiety attacks, and I would go to the doctor. I would rush over there, and they would say, it's all in your head. You can't be having a heart attack. You're only 32 years old. And just so you're not worried, I did not have a heart attack. But I was having these strange things happen. So they put me on blood pressure medication. And then I had some weird things happen with, Aunt Flo, we'll just say, for those who are uncomfortable. Weird stuff going on, and I had to go to the doctor one time, and they had to do a biopsy, and he came in 2 minutes before he did the biopsy, gave me some kind of blue pill that I guess was supposed to help, but it still hurt, and then he said, sorry, I didn't mean to panic you, but I was panicked. At the time, my dad, I think my dad had already passed. A couple years later, my sister died at 40 of a major heart attack. Thinking it was an asthma attack. And so I took on 2 of her children. And then my mother passed. This was like a 6-year period. The guy I was dating was kind of acting out, and he ended up getting it together, and I married him. But so I had an additional 2 kids. I was pretty poor at the time. And I was working, but I was working in human services, so that wasn't paying well. And I was in Massachusetts, and I was going to school, but then when I got Michael, I had to stop school because he was definitely unmanageable. And so all these changes were going on. So every time I would go to the doctor, they would say, well, look at all the stress you have. This is all in your head. This is all stress. This is, this makes sense. Got married, moved to Pennsylvania. We were in Lowell, Massachusetts, moved to Pennsylvania. Again, started seeing new doctors saying, it's a little unusual. I have high blood pressure, and finally convinced a doctor to do a cardiac workup, and that was okay. And the anxiety, and I have this bridge thing, and it's people say, like, you have this phobia of a bridge. I'm not afraid of the bridge. I'm afraid of that gust of wind whipping my car off the bridge into the water, and then I drown. But my dad had told me to unroll the window, so slowly it fills up, and then you open the door. So it's not really, but it's panicking over those really high bridges. So you can't go to Maryland and New York. I travel to Massachusetts a lot. The Fishkill's okay, but God, the George Washington is not my friend. So I kept saying, like, these are really odd things. This is a lot going on. And we had 3 teenagers. Well, I had 4 teenagers at once, because between my kids being a year apart, and my sister's kid being 6 months in between there. Anyways, party at the house, we went away. We're not drinkers, we're in recovery, so there was alcohol in the house. There was a condom. And so that's it. All the teenagers were like out, they got thrown out. So the doctor kept saying, it's in your head, it's empty nesting, and all this stress. Flash forward. Finally, my husband got frustrated. He was a physician. He ordered a bunch of tests and sent me to a specialist. Now, originally, I had seen a specialist, Dr. Friccione. He went to New Jersey. But then I started seeing this other guy who kept saying it was in my head. In the meantime, we thought it would be a good idea for me to get pregnant. I don't even know what we were thinking. It turned out okay, because my daughter ended up getting pregnant for us, and we had grandchildren, and we had enough kids. I went to the new specialist. Turns out he said it was all in my head. And 2 years later, he wasn't a doctor anymore, so let's just say I didn't trust him very much. 10 years after all of this started, I'm about 42 years old, my husband finally says, that's it, I'm just going to run a bunch of lab tests and send you off. I go to the doctor. He's a specialist. He looks at me. He looks at my blood test. He looks at me. How old are you? 42. He looks at my blood test. He looks up and he says, hey, I'm really sorry. You're postmenopausal. You went through the whole thing, and there's nothing we can do because you're way beyond hormone therapy replacement, but it wasn't all in your head. Sorry. And I haven't been back to a doctor I trust since then, so that's it. Short and sweet.